Hey guys, I wanted to share with you my blue-green deck. This blue is a color I swore I'd never ever mess with, but I felt like just making this because I just wanted to, and mind you, it's only splashing blue for removal and counters. It is not done for any other reason at all. Alright, so the mana base is going to be 10 forests, 10 islands, and I also included, I'll probably put into place of this, Evolving Winds, which is just basically a fetch land. And those are critical, especially whenever you're going more than one color. You definitely need a fetch land of some kind, or a dual land. It doesn't matter. Alright, so the first creature that I have in this deck is a playset of Arbor Elves. It's a 1/1 for 1, but it untaps forest. So those are pretty good, especially as you'll see with the price of some of these creatures. The other creature in the 1-drop for green, which is no surprise, 3 Elvish Mystics. If you're running green, you are running this card. It doesn't matter how much green you have in your deck, you're going to be running Elvish Mystic. Next, I have 2 Timberland Guides. It's a 1/1 for 2, and when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And that will have high relevance with some of the creatures in this deck. Next is I have 2 Elvish Visionary, which is a 1/1 for 2, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Card draw is always nice. Next, my next one of is 1 Voyaging Satyr, which is another 1/1 for 2, and it is untap target land, which is better than Arbor Elf somewhat, since you can untap any land instead of it having to be a forest. Next is a card I wish I had 2 of, is an Oak Street Innkeeper, which is a 1/2 for 3, but as long as it's not your turn, tap creatures you control have hexproof. So if all your creatures are tapped out, then no one can do a spot removal on them, since all of them have hexproof. My next one of creature is 1 Reclamation Sage. It's a 2/1 for 3, and when it enters the battlefield, I may destroy target creature destroy target artifact or enchantment, which will definitely come into use with a lot of the standard decks. But again, this is just for casual play. I don't know how good this would hold up at all. My next one of is 1 Witchstalker. It's a 3/3 for 3, and it has hexproof. Whenever an opponent casts a blue or black spell during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Witchstalker. So that's actually a really decent card right there, and I wish I had more of it. The next 2 cards are not going to come into anyone's surprise, seeing how this is mainly a green deck. 1 Courser of Crufix. It's a 2/4 for 3, and play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So that's pretty steady life gain right there. The next one, also no one's surprised, and I'm surprised this is a common. I'm surprised it's not at least an uncommon. Nylia's Disciple. It's a 3/3/4. When Nylia's Disciple enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to your devotion to green. So that's really good, seeing as most of the creatures in this deck are green. So you're gonna have a pretty high green devotion. Next one of is a Living Totem, which is a 2/3 for 4, but it has Convoke, so your creatures help cast the spell, and each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 colorless of it. And so you could possibly just cast this for 1 if you have 3 other creatures. When Living Totem enters the battlefield, you may put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature. So pretty much like a Timberlane Guide, just better. Next one of is a Charging Rhino. It's a 4/4 for 5, and Charging Rhino can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So double blocking, no. Another one. This is going to be extremely hard to get out on the battlefield, but it is extremely, extremely worth it if you can. Terra Stomper. It's an 8/8 for 6. Terra Stomp cannot be countered, and it has Trample. Picture that. An 8/8 Trample that can't be countered. That's pretty scary when you're facing off against that on the battlefield. And the final green creature that we have in here is 1 Siege Worm. It's a 5/5 for 7 with Convoke. So you could, if you have 5 other creatures on the battlefield, you can cast this for only 2 green. And it also has Trample. Now I said that I really only splash blue for removal, and that is true, because there's only 1 blue creature that I actually have in this deck, and that's only for its ability. It's a Prescient Chimera. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. I can't remember. It's a 3/4 for 5, and it has Flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. So I only included it for the scrying ability. No other reason. And the final creature is Artifact Creature, Wall. It is a Wall of Tanglecord, which is a 2-drop, 2 colorless, for a 0/6, and tap 1 green, and it gains reach until end of turn. So it's pretty powerful in order as a blocker. So get some defense in there. And early game defense if you can get this on your opening hand. Just do it turn 2. Alright, literally the rest of this is going to be instants, sorceries, and enchantments. First of all, so this is standard if you're running green. I have a playset of Fog. Just pay 1 green, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So there's really no reason why you should not run at least half a playset, if not a playset of Fog. Next, I have 2 Snare the Skies, which is target creature gets +1/+1 and gains reach until end of turn. Next, I have 2 Unnatural Predation. Target creature gains +1/+1 and gains Trample until end of turn. So again, Trample is very, very good. Next, I have 2 Titanic Growth. For 2 mana, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. And the final green instant is 3 Sheltering Ward. Target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn, and you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So that is really freaking awesome if you have like a very, very buffed up creature at that point, and you can just gain a lot of life that way. Alright, onto the blue instance. I seriously thought I had more than one of this, but apparently I don't, but I'm looking to get more. 1 Negate. Every person who plays blue knows this card. Pay 2 mana, 1 colorless and 1 blue to counter target non-creature spell. That's standard. That's just standard for blue. I have 2 Voyage's End. Pay 2, return target creature to its owner's hand, scry 1. So that's pretty good value for 2 mana. I have 1 Crypsis. Target creature you control gains protection from creatures of your opponent's control until end of turn, and untap it. So that's pretty good value as well for only 2 mana. That way, they'll have to cast a counter spell or kill spell, something like that, in order to kill your creature if they don't want to take the damage. Which most of the time, that's not really going to be beneficial to them, especially since it's only for that turn. But it's a good way to get in damage. I have 1 copy of Illify. Double blue, target creature, counter target creature or aura spell. I have 1 Hubris. Return target creature and all auras attached to it to their owner's hands. So if they have like a creature with a ton of enchantments or a ton of aura spells on it, and you return all that back to their hand and they still have a considerably full hand, they're going to have to discard. I mean, they might discard the auras and enchantments anyway, but still, it forces them to discard, which is always good. Next, I have 3 copies of Cancel. Just pay 3 and counter target spell, which is pretty basic for blue. The last of the blue instance is 2 copies of Bone to Ash, counter target creature spell, and draw a card. Kind of expensive. I kind of wish it was 3 mana, but yeah, it's still good value. Okay, into the green sorceries. There's not really that many green sorceries. I have 1 copy of Vital Burst, which I really wish I had more of this because this is insane value. 2 mana, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. That is insane. Imagine if you got Terra Stopper out. That would be hitting for 13 damage that turn with trample. That's just insane value right there. The next 2 sorceries, they're incredibly expensive, and I would not have included these had they not had Convoke. I have 1 copy of Overwhelm, which is a 7-drop with Convoke. Creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. So, I mean, since you have to tap your creatures to cast this, it's kind of whether you're gonna actually use it or you're just gonna pay a lot of mana to cast this, or maybe just tap some creatures like your Arbor Elves, which you wouldn't be attacking with anyway, to attack in their place. So maybe that would be worth it. I'm not sure. And my final green sorcery is 1 copy of Feral Incarnation, which is Convoke, and put 3/3/3 green beast creature tokens on the battlefield, which is really, really good if you can cast this for 1 green. Like, that is great board presence, and green's all about just trying to get big creatures out there, or semi-big creatures out there, and I consider anything 3 or above a good size. So, yeah. Next, into the blue sorceries. I have 3 copies of Divination, which is pay 3 mana, draw 2 cards. Which, blue's all about card advantage and scry and countering anyway, so fits well. The next is 1 copy of Pull from the Deep. Return up to 1 target instant card, up to 1 target sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and exile Pull from the Deep. That's pretty good, considering that you're mainly running instants and sorceries besides creatures. Next, 1 copy of Into the Void. and that's 4 mana. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. Which, if you want to get in some damage on a turn and you're just afraid that they're going to use like their top creature to block, like say they have like a 7/7 or a 6/6 out on the field, and you don't want your creatures to be blocked by that, just use Into the Void, try to return them back to their owner's hands. Okay, now we're getting into the enchantments. I have 3 copies of Force Adaptation, and at the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. So this is actually really good. Just for 1 mana, you can have an infinite ramp until either that creature dies or this enchantment's removed. So this is just a buff that keeps on buffing your creature. So if you can get like a huge creature out there, or even just like a small creature, and you just buff it up each turn. Because unlike a lot of enchantments that are like this, most enchantments like this force you to attack with it and then put the +1/+1 counter on it. Which is really kind of annoying, and especially if that creature starts out like a 1/1 or a 2/2, because that's what it mostly is most of the time. It's really useless. But Force Adaptation does it right, and in my opinion, it's very good, especially for only 1 mana. The next, I have 2 copies of Nihilia's Presence, and it's enchant land, and when Nihilia's Presence enters the battlefield, draw a card. And enchanted land is every basic land type in addition to its other types. So if you need, say you need another island instead of another forest, it's automatically an island as well. So that's great to have as well. Next, I have 3 copies of Alpha Authority. And enchant creature has hexproof and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So no double blocking, and it's hexproof. So that has great value as well to make sure that none of our stuff gets targeted. So all the Doomblades and all the Tragic Slips out there, you don't have to worry about those anymore. Now on to the 1 blue enchantment that I have, and that is, of course, Ensoul Artifact. Now, for only 2 mana, Enchanted Artifact is a creature with a base power toughness of 5/5 in addition to its other types. That creates serious board presence. You can have a 5/5 creature artifact creature on the battlefield on like turn 2 or 3, depending on what enchantment that you put down. Now, speaking of artifacts, onto the artifacts, which there's only 3 that I run in this deck. And first is 2 Golcar's Bell. And tap, each player puts the top card of his or her library onto his or her graveyard. So that's pretty much just like very slow milling. And I mean, it's good, and although I just wish it said opponents instead of each player, but whatever. And the last card in this deck is one of Grafdigger's Cage. Now, I was considering putting this in my mono black deck, but obviously when you hear this ability, you're going to know why I didn't. Creature cards can't enter the battlefield from graveyards or libraries. Players can't cast cards in graveyards or libraries. That's pretty simple to understand why I didn't put it in my black deck, because that is heavily reliant on graveyard interaction and also library interaction. And this is only for 1 mana. You could shut down, if you're playing against another mono black deck, they're more than likely going to be wanting to play with a graveyard. You put that down, they won't be able to interact with the graveyard whatsoever. So it's really no question why I would put that in here. Now, basically, the strategy in this deck is basically to get out an Elvish Mystic or Harbor Elf on turn 1, whichever you can, and just use those for ramp and try to get out bigger creatures over time, and eventually try to get out something like Terror Stomp or the Siege Worm or anything that can get damage consistently, and just try to counter other spells that would take out your creatures. That's the main reason why I splash blue, and that I really don't like playing blue all that much. Because I mean, I just don't want to be a jerk to people. but yeah, that's pretty much my green-blue deck, and I mean, I don't really know anything else that I can say about it. It runs okay. I mean, it's not the most efficient thing, and it's definitely not tournament worthy, I don't think. And especially since I don't have like the Scry lands or anything. I want to get Scry lands and other dual lands and all that. It's just I gotta have the money to do that. But yeah, that was my green-blue deck. If you have any questions at all for me, just leave them down in the comments, and I will definitely answer your questions. Alright, thank you guys, see you later.